math essentials, okay? And I'm going to outline 3 layers of math for us because there really are different segments to what we do. And the first is, you know, all things residential real estate math, okay? And what I mean by that is, from being able to crunch numbers and come up with the proper market range for a property, understanding how numbers influence trends, um, understanding, Bruce, we should have you do a refresher for agents on a lot of the industry finance terms that, we may take for granted. Some of the things I'm going to just talk about, like APR, points, amortization. Is there anyone that doesn't know what a point is in context of talking about a real estate transaction or a purchase? And now be honest with me. Does anybody not know what a point is? Bruce, I don't believe everybody knows.
Rob, can you go over it?
Sure.
A point is defined as prepaid interest.
And,
And 1 point equals 1% of your loan amount, and it's interest you pay up front so that you could have a lower interest rate and a better yield over the term of the loan. So it's commonly referred to as points, but by definition, it's prepaying the interest, which is tax deductible, and it lowers the rate for the term of the loan.
so if you're buying, just to make life simple, if you're buying a $500,000 house, borrowing 400,000, and Bruce came to you and said, "Hey, 0 points is 3.25," and you said, "I want to get under 3," you might be able to do something at 2.99 with a point and a quarter, which would be $5,000 up front. Is that correct, Bruce?
Yes, correct. Yeah. You
And
could pay fractional points too, which is Rob's example. Usually people think in points, but you could pay any portion of points. You could pay a half a point, quarter point, but it's just prepaid interest, which is really by definition what it is.
it's a calculation. You figure if you're going to be there for a long time, and I think, Bruce, when we started out in the business, it was much more common to pay points, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, typically the difference between paying points and not paying points is about 5 years. So after 5 years, typically paying points will make more sense. But yes, it's a calculation.
A little bonus thing. There's something called a basis point, which is a percentage of a point. So 50 basis points is essentially 1/2 of 1%. Um, amortization. Okay, amortization is the math on how your loan gets paid off. How many of us have heard, oh, in the first few years of a 30-year loan, you don't pay any principal down? Has anybody ever heard that? Come on,
Yes.
everybody's sleeping here. I'm gonna have to let Robert answer some of these questions if nobody's answering. So, Robert, when did you get your license? How many years ago?
16.
And when did you buy your house more than 20 years? Your first house more than 20 years ago?
Yes,
I'll bet you after 2 years of paying your mortgage, you were shocked at how little you paid off, right?
absolutely. And
And
especially it was at 18.75%.
I remember those days.
and folks, this is the magic or the tragic of amortization. Now, I'm going to ask um, Shantae, you're brave enough to put yourself on camera. I'm going to ask you, as the interest rates go down, do you think that there's more, your interest rate goes down and your payment goes down? Is there more principal in each payment or less than if rates were higher?
More. More.
You said if the interest goes down and what goes down?
So let's just say you borrowed $100,000 at 6%, and your payment was 500 a month for that mortgage. And I know that's unrealistic. Then you borrow it at 3%, and your payment goes down to 400 or $300 a month. Which one has more principal?
The lower interest,
You mean
right?
so the lower interest rate, so the payment that's $200 less is going to have more principal than the higher payment?
That's what I'm thinking. Am I wrong?
You're right. But I think most people don't realize that because, and Bruce, I think of it like this: if interest rates collapse to zero, then everything would be principal.
You're
So
teasing her. You scared Shantae. She had it right.
I knew she was I knew she had courage and was going to challenge me. But that's the reality. Even though your payments drop, right, which is a great story, so does your principal in those payments goes up. So you build up equity quicker.
And that leads to why points, maybe it helps understand now what points actually do. So if you prepay the interest, which is a 1% of your loan amount for 1 point, by doing that, you get a lower interest rate on the term of the loan that you're paying out. That's the exact correlation between the two.
Okay. So sometimes it defies logic, and I can't trick Shantae, not even on a Friday morning. So that's amortization is the rate at which your principal balance goes down. And if you take like a 15-year mortgage versus a 30-year, your principal and interest almost always flips, right, Bruce? So you'd have a lot more principal in absolute terms of your payment than interest versus a 30.
Yeah, that's at the end of the terms.
Um, some things that we want to be conscious of, appreciation. Um, if you're looking at somebody in buying a home and doing the math, very, very few people talk about appreciation or tax benefits of buying a home, even though those are still um, very strong components. Last night we had an interesting discussion about tax rates, equalized value, equalization ratios, um, things of that nature, which I think we've all heard, but I think we need to double down on what do these things mean. Um, Now, does anybody know or remember from some of our prior masterminds what an equalization ratio is? Does anybody know what an equalization ratio is?
Isn't it the difference between what the property gets tax assessed versus the value of the property?
Yes, it's a percentage of what the assessor believes the value is as compared to current market value. And Clever, let me give you an example. Let's say that Ridgewood did a tax assess an overall tax assessment in 2016, right?
Mhm.
And they went and they looked at all the houses and they assessed everybody a value. And 10 years from now, okay, are they going to do one every year or are they going to just let that one ride for a while?
They're gonna leave that one for quite some time.
Right. So back in 2007, we had properties assessed at 120, 130% of their true value because values declined. Now, as property values go up, you might see on your tax assessment in Ridgewood that your house is assessed at 675 and you might be able to sell it for 900, right? And you might think, hey, Clever, shh, don't say anything, man. I'm getting a steal. I'm only assessed at 675. But if the equalization ratio is 50%, what does that tell us?
That well, for once, your property is worth a lot more than what is being assessed for.
Well, if you're assessed at, and this is important, if you're assessed at 675 and your home is worth a million, right? How many homeowners are going to call the tax assessor and say, I want to complain?
Zero,
Very few, right?
none.
But if you go to the equalization table and it says all houses in Westfield are assessed at 50% of their market value, and your house is assessed at 675, that means that you're assessed at 1.35 and your house is only worth a million. Clever, you are over assessed. You're entitled to relief. You're entitled to an appeal.
Right.
Okay. Now it pains me to know that we as an industry don't look at this as something that's one of the first things we think about when we evaluate a home, right?
Can
Uh,
I, can I ask a question, Rob?
that's how it works here. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, but doesn't that mean that they're looking at it in like a graded way?
And
They're assessing it according to how it's going to go up, like you said, because it's not going to change in 10 years per se.
so okay, that's an excellent question, Shante. Let me give you some context, right? Let's assume that all these houses were assessed in 2016 in Ridgewood, right? And on one side of Ridgewood, there was a a park put in and an additional rail stop, which added a tremendous amount of value. And another part of Ridgewood, they approved a landfill, and there's garbage trucks going by there. Now, could one part of town improve in 10 years and one part, become less desirable?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
what I'm saying to you is the assessor doesn't reassess until they go to every single property. So, if Kleber is in the part of town where it didn't get improved, right, and his house is assessed at 675 and it's 50%, he's overassessed by $375,000 and paying taxes on $375,000 of value he doesn't have. Now, there's a whole nother discussion that we can have here because some agents are like, but if you lower the assessed value, are people going to pay, what it's worth? Does anybody does anybody agree? Like, hey, if my house is assessed with the tax assessor, let's say it's at 100% and it's assessed for $1 million, would you rather have it assessed at 1,000,001 or 800,000? Okay, anyone?
800,000.
800.
So do you think Clever, when somebody goes to buy it, they might say, hey, look, you're asking 1,000,001 for this. It's only assessed at 800. It's supposed to be full value. Like, you're crazy, man.
Because the value is going to be based on comps, not necessarily on what was assessed for.
All right, I agree with you there. And I'm going to even go one step further. Okay. Um, your value is enhanced when you have a lower tax rate. Okay. And I'm going to give you an example. I had bought a house in, must have been like 2014 at 5 Karen Terrace. And I bought it in a divorce situation. I had to wait 7 or 8 months for the court to approve the transaction. So do you think I got a better deal or a worse deal because I was patient dealing with a divorce? What do you think, Clever?
Better deal.
I got a hell of a deal because I was the only one willing to put up with that bullshit, right?
Yeah, of
So
course.
so I paid 522.5 for my house, okay? The house across the street, which is the exact same house, sold for 775, okay, within a year. And that house was assessed right around that amount. When I bought mine, I had mine appealed because of what I paid, and the tax assessor looked at it, so it was on the market for a year, and said, you know what, I'm going to give you a reduction in your assessment by $175,000. So back in 2017, we both put the houses back up for sale, right?
Mm-hmm.
Essentially the same house. And my house sold for 799 in 5 days. The house across the street was on the market for 775, sold for 735 after 3 months. And actually, that house even had a slightly larger lot in the back. But the reason why I believe mine sold faster is my taxes were almost $4,000 less. Somebody coming here, you look on the left, look on the right, the same house, right? This is a really dramatic example. And I believe the house across the street was number 7. And the tax assessment, actually, I think they reassessed after that. But if you look at that, that meant mine sold immediately and his took months and negotiated down in the same exact market. So tax assessment is tricky because it has a higher assessment doesn't mean it's worth more or less. You have to apply it in the context that it's in, right? And Clever, thank you for that input. I'm gonna have fun today. You guys know I'm a total nerd here, but it's gonna be good. So when we look at investment properties, and this is like residential math, we look at something called debt coverage. Like if you're going to rent out a house and the mortgage is $1,000, if you're only getting $900 a month in rent, what does the lender think about that, Bruce?
Well, we look at the debt service coverage ratio, and we typically handle investment properties the same as commercial properties. You look at what the revenue coming in on the property is, you take a vacancy factor, which is normally 25% of what the rents are going to be, and then you calculate that difference. And if there's a positive, you're good. If there's a negative, it depends how big the negative is, but it's a big factor in determining qualifying for investment properties and commercial properties. That's for sure.
A
It's
property,
less on the applicant. The guy could make a ton of money. The gal can make a ton of money. It's more, does the property cover itself as a debt service coverage ratio?
because like the property should have a positive income. You shouldn't be paying a down payment and having to pay each month to cover it. Who that is not a lender knows what DTI is? I'm going to go to agents first, then I'm going to turn it over to our
It's
management
debt to
team.
income,
That's income.
debt
All
to
right,
income.
you got it. And debt to income is a major factor in what allows somebody to qualify on the financial side, assuming that the equity is there and an appraisal and the credit's there. I mean, and credit meaning, a good credit score, not just that they can afford the debts that they have. Who knows what CLTV is? That's not a lender. Anybody know what CLTV is? I'm gonna open it up to the management team. Anybody know? Robert, Maria, Colleen, what's CLTV?
Combined loan to value.
Credit.
In stereo. But we should all know that, because if you go to somebody that's selling a property, they have a first and a second mortgage, right? They only owe 250 on a 500 house, but they took out a 200 second. What's their CLTV? It's 450 out of 500. It's 90%. Okay. We have absorption ratios, absorption rates, days on market effect, cost or sale price per square foot. I mean, these are painful calculations to do, but I know I've been out with many of you on this call where we've used 2 or 3 data points to get somebody to price their house properly. All right. Now I'm going to go to some special numbers in the industry, and this is where Colleen and Maria and Robert can't say anything. Who knows what 92% is in the real estate industry? Okay,
Number of agents that
92% is the percentage of buyers and sellers that are satisfied with the services they receive from their agent. It's a pretty high ratio, right? I think so. Next number is 80%. And 80% is going to come back to the number following the next number, which is 20. And 80% is the amount of business that 20% of the industry does. Okay. 80% is also the percentage of agents that are out of the real estate business after 2 years.
I was going to say that.
Okay. Who knows what the number 13 is? It's a relative to the 92 number.
Percentage of people that use the same agent?
Yep. How is that possible? How is there a universe where 92% of our consumers are satisfied with the service that they got? And I'm going to tell you that number is a little bit skewed, because the overall population doesn't say 92% of the realtors are good. Okay, it says 92% of the people that purchased or sold a home were satisfied with the agent that got the job done. So they might have listed with somebody and failed to have it close. They might have worked with 3 buyer's agents before they found the one that got the job done. But if you were the crown agent that made the transaction happen, 92% of the people are happy, yet only 13% will go back to their original agent. So what do we call that besides disappointing?
Lack of follow-up.
opportunity.
That's an opportunity. Bruce, thank you. So that's a huge opportunity, right? Because our industry does not do a good job at reinforcing the value. And I'm going to go back to R4. And I think, Robert, did you go to, oh, geez, what was the gentleman's name? One of the coaches that Remax is now working with, not Travis Roberts. Anyway, one of the coaches says, who's that?
Jared James?
Jared James, yes. Thank you, Robert. So Jared James had a whole breakout session where he said the customer relationship just starts at the closing. It doesn't end at the closing.
Mm.
The relationship starts at the closing. It doesn't end there. Where do most agents see? I mean, by the name closing. All right, this file's closed. I'm moving on to the next shiny object, right? So that's a mindset, a shift in mindset that I think we all need to, pay attention to, because what we're doing is we're doing a great job taking care of our clients that close transactions with us. Then we're orphaning them, we're abandoning them, and we're chasing another shiny object. And how much more difficult is it to I see John Joyce. I don't know if you're able to talk, John, but how much more difficult is it, John, to work with somebody who uh, doesn't have the point of reference of what a good job you did? So you have to go and explain to them what a good agent you are versus somebody who closed a transaction and was satisfied from a previous transaction. Which one's harder to work with?
Well, it's a lot harder with someone who doesn't know your reputation and skills.
And are they going to be more inclined to listen to you if they were a past customer with a successful outcome, or if they're somebody you met on the street?
They're more likely to listen to you if you're past customer with them. I mean, you have that reference with them. You have that ability to keep in touch with them.
And they trust you, John, right? Because they have context. You
Correct.
gave them advice, they were satisfied, and yet we orphan them. And there's 52 of us on the call today. I know probably 45 people got up today and said, "Oh shit, math, I'm not going on." I know that, but we're all guilty of it. Every single one of us. It's just a matter of what scale, right? We've all orphaned great clients, right? And if we think about how do we orphan less of them, it's going to be a big game changer, in our career. And then the last number I put down here.
Is there any stats on what the 20% recapture of clients is versus the whole 100% group, or no?
I don't know that anybody's ever broken out the top agents, but I'm sure it has to be higher because a lot of those other percentages, Bruce, aren't even in the business the next time they buy a house, right? But it still is not going to be north of 50%. Okay, it's still a staggeringly high opportunity for agents. Okay, I put down here the next one, and I think you have this all on your the link I sent out for the meeting has a link to this page here. Investor/commercial math. Now, is anybody on this call a primarily a commercial agent? All right, good. Because they like to feel like they're better than us and throw around some big words. All right, let me just share my screen here.
Hey Rob, this is Eric Heller, commercial here.
Oh boy, sorry,
And
Eric.
I heard that last comment. Hey, I would jump in, but I'm unfortunately with some clients. I can't talk, but I just want to let you know I'm here.
So Eric, this is a good. I'm gonna get your context here just for a second. Now,
Sure.
have you worked with residential agents trying to do a transaction, a commercial transaction? And can you tell me, is it frustrating, either a yes or a no?
Yes.
And what's the main reason?
I don't know. Maybe I think maybe sides might have different feelings of each other. But I mean, I started off residential with prominent property Sotheby's, so I know both ends of it. But I think I also have residential friends too that I talk to, and they seem to think all commercial brokers look down upon them, which I don't. Um, and then I think it's also reversed. I think the residential side have certain feelings about the commercial side.
So I'm gonna say that I think one of the biggest frustrations is the residential agents don't know how the game is played on the commercial side, and the commercial agents don't have the patience to educate and re-educate residential agents that don't have the initiative to understand it. Is that a fair assessment? It's not a personal
Yeah,
thing, right? Because
yeah. I mean, even specifically, like 2 days ago, not to get too much detail, but 2 days ago, I mean, I have a listing in Elizabeth under contract, and a residential agent from Caldwell called me, and I told her it was under contract, and I found out a day later she went directly to the seller and some story that the price changed, and I made her look bad in front of her clients and all this stuff. And I called her and tried to talk to her, and she just blew me up on the phone. And I said, look, I'm trying to talk to you, professionally, and just asking you why you went around me, around the sign and went directly to my person. So I had to call their broker, and he was very professional with me and took all my information. And now I'm dealing with that. But I, I don't know. It doesn't really specifically to your
there
question, but
could be a bad egg, could be a not understanding the process. But here's a little link here to some of the commercial words, some of the commercial terms: gross
Mhm.
scheduled income, gross operating income, net operating income, capitalization rate, cap rate, also known as cash on cash return, equity buildup rate, price to rent ratio, price to square foot, return on investment, cash flow from operations, cash flow after financing, occupancy ratio is pretty basic, break even ratio, gross rent multiplier, debt service coverage. Okay, and there's some things that are even missing here. I think, oh, cash on cash return. Yep. So there's some pretty basic stuff here that if we go back about a month ago where I talked about expanding the possible audience and the amount of business that we can do. I don't know if it was Glenn or one of the teams had actually started talking to their clients about investment in real estate as an investment class, so that, hey, congratulations, you bought a house. I'm here to help you out. By the way, if you ever had any thoughts about real estate as an investment, I'm the person that would like to help you out, just like I did buying a house, right? That's very logical, right? um, and I think understanding these basic terms here will give you an ability to provide better service to your clients, will give you more confidence in the discussion and the conversation, and will ultimately lead to more business. And it's you could refer the business to one of our commercial agents or a different commercial broker, whoever you see value. But understanding the terms is even critical in making a referral. Okay, so
Rob, just for a minute, a shout out to our commercial division because they're very willing to work a deal with our residential agents and split the commission or whatever. But it's a great opportunity for our residential agent to learn about commercial.
yep. So the first layer of math is understanding the residential, which is finance, valuation, whatnot. Second is commercial, and the third, okay, is a very painful math of consistency and the compound effect and how things work. And I've talked about this a lot, but I don't think I could ever talk about it enough. Now, if you hone your skill and you're the top 1% in the world at what you do, okay? And I'm going to give us, I'm going to take us out of real estate and just say, like, we're a professional athlete, right? We're a professional baseball player, we're a professional basketball player, right? If you're the top 1%, you probably don't make it into the pros, right? You probably have to be the top 1% of the top 1%, right? I mean, one out of 10,000, maybe. And that 1 out of 10,000, which is in the 99.99th percentile, okay, is maybe making a couple $100,000. Now, if you go to the top 1% of the NBA versus the person that just got in the NBA, what do you think the difference in compensation is in your contract that you get? What's your annual pay? I don't know. There's what, about 30 players on each team and 30 teams. Maybe there's 1,000 NBA players. So if we take 1,000 NBA players, what are the top 10 players getting? Anybody have any idea?
Over 100 million.
And does any NBA player get? Maybe I
Yeah,
don't
the
know.
highest they're going to get right now is about 30 something million for the top tier. It's all based on. I don't know if that's a great example. I think more in the percentage is the example.
Okay, so let's just say that they get 25 million, Bruce. That's a pretty nice income, right? And what do you think the entry level is? You know, for the guy that made the NBA,
600,000.
600,000 versus 30 million. And what is that? 20 times or 200 times? Bruce, 600 times 5 is 3 million. So that's 50 times. That person makes 50 times more, and they're both in the 99.9th percentile. Just the one is in the 99.99 percentile. And folks, this is the compound effect. Okay, because putting in that extra time to be just a little bit better than you are is not going to increase you. Uh-oh. Somebody's jamming here in the morning.
Yeah.
Let me mute everybody if I have the power. Mute all. Okay, if you want to speak, just unmute yourself. So the power is in taking it to that next level. Okay, and if you were 99.9 on your math test or your SATs, you'd probably get into any college, right? You know, your parents would be proud. You should be proud. But if you got 99.999, okay, in the real estate or the basketball world, you're not going to make, 1% more than the other guy. You're probably going to make 50 times more than the other lady or man that you competed against. Okay. Um, yes, Angie, I guess, had a good experience with Carlo and Cheryl at our commercial division. She wanted me to post their information. I don't have it here right this second. So, but
Just posted what compound improvement does over the course of a year, 1% a day. So just so you know,
you put that in the chat.
It's 3,800% better a year. So it's not 1% a day. It's not 365% as it compounds. It just explodes.
Yeah. So that's the math of, I'm going to call it the math of consistency or constant improvement, or, and the same goes true as if your skills drop by like a tenth of a percent a day, Bruce, like think what's going to happen in a year. You're going to become irrelevant.
Well, it says if you get 1% work each day compounded, it means you lose 97% of the value of each year. So it's the exact opposite. It's crazy. It's unbelievable when you look at it.
So that's what I call the compound effect. And everything works together. It's kind of like the human body. Like if all your systems are good, but your heart fails, you die, right? Everything has to work together. So consistency, okay, and consistency is good or bad. And Bruce gave an example of positive and negative consistency, which couldn't be any clearer to me. In my opinion, consistency creates accountability. Consistency establishes your reputation. Consistency makes you relevant. Consistency maintains your message. Okay. And one thing that I didn't put here, I don't believe, is successful people, the people that, we look up to in the industry, average people and people that are in the process of exiting the industry, all have activities they don't like to do. Nobody can tell me that, the top agents, love to prospect, right? Nobody can tell me that Carlos Turner loves the fact that every morning at 9 o'clock he's on with his team overseas for half an hour to go over what happened the prior day. Nobody can tell me that it's pleasurable to do an introspective look and to try to figure out what is not working and try to figure out how to fix it. It would be much easier to sleep till 10, trust me. But successful people, they may not like to do it all the time. They might not ever like to do some things, but they still do it anyway because that's part of the mix that enables them to get to that point. Okay? Successful people don't like to do the things that you and I don't like to do, but they just do it anyway. Okay? And that's part of the consistency. If you've ever been on a streak, and I don't know, maybe a diet, or maybe there's a better example of a streak. But once you've got 72 things that you've done in a row for every day, you're not going to want to, even if you have a headache, you're not going to want to skip doing it and then have to start that streak all over again. Okay, that's part of consistency. Um, and I'm going to give you some examples of other examples of how the power of consistency helps. Um, if there were an investment opportunity where you have there's no track record of the leadership and it's in a very volatile industry. Okay, let's just say energy right now, prices go up, prices go down, company can make 100 million one year and lose 4 million the next year. um, do you think that the investment community is going to pay a premium or they're going to have a discount to that type of financial opportunity? Anybody? I've muted you all, so you have to unmute yourself to talk.
Can you repeat the question?
So, if a company has erratic earnings, right, because there's unproven leadership, will an investment community like the stock market pay a premium or will they discount that earnings of a company like that and compare it to a company like an Apple or a JP Morgan
Discount.
Chase? They're going to
Discount.
discount it, right? Because it's not consistent, right? And even within an industry, I this is going back 4 months ago. I looked at the multiple of Wells Fargo and JP Morgan Chase. And I think at the time, the multiple for Wells Fargo's earnings was 12 times earnings and JP Morgan Chase was 29 times earnings. And why is that? It's because the reputation of the brand and the consistency. Okay? And quality brands, and Bruce, you were part of Black Rock or Blackstone? Blackstone, right?
Yes.
And Blackstone is an amazing company that will look at assets and they'll take a $5 billion income number and they'll be able to tell Wall Street that they're going to make $4.21 a share, because what they're going to do is they're going to break it down and then they're going to break it down and they're going to break it down. And they probably came to you, Bruce, and said, what can we expect from your office? And then they roll it up and they tell Wall Street what to expect. Is that accurate or am I off base?
I've only been on 2 calls with Blackstone, and I got to tell you, it was amazing to me 4 or 5 years ago, the things they were talking about that they just absolutely knew for sure would happen. Unbelievable. Even specific to your industry with virtual, just I mean, it's unbelievable. The math, it really does. There's trends, there's math, there's all kinds of different sectors. But yeah, it's unbelievable what these companies know because they break it down.
So the quality brands, and we're a brand within a brand. Okay, the quality brands deliver consistent results because they continue the activities that they know will provide results. And unfortunately, or fortunately for us, the unfortunate is if you don't like to do prospecting and you just want to continue doing what you're doing, newsflash, you can't expect anything different. And as a matter of fact, as the market shifts, you will probably be um, unequally affected by the shift. okay, because you're eating on the fringe. And if you're doing activities that you know deliver results, all you need to do is do more of those activities to improve your results. And what I mean by that is, there was, I'm going to go to Robert Garver. There was a gentleman by the name of Q. You remember that story? So, what Q did is Q realized in his first year in the business that, hey, if I can speak to, was it 25 people, I get one transaction. So, and it might have even been a little bit less than that, Robert, but can you just tell the audience that might not have been here when you shared that before, what did Q do in his first year in the business? How did he generate business?
Well, he was very aggressive in that he was highly motivated, and he would do a range of activities to reach out to people, including but not limited to packing grocery bags at the local supermarket, because it gave him an opportunity to talk to people. He would go to development sites, and he would stand there all day waiting for people who might come by so that he could talk to them. And he,
New construction, Robert's talking about, yeah.
I'm sorry, yes, new construction. Um, just so he could talk to people coming by to try and have them become clients of his.
Now he was just random. He was random with all this, right? He didn't track it, did he?
I'm sorry?
I said all these activities he did were random, right? He didn't track them, did he?
Correct. They were random.
I tried to catch there. Didn't he have a score sheet that he had where like he wouldn't go to bed unless he got like 20 points or something like that?
Yeah, he did. He assigned point valuations to making a phone call, to getting an appointment, to getting a listing, to getting a sale.
And
And
his first year in the business, his first full year. So I don't know, maybe he started in February, but his first full year in the business, the guy made diamond, which means he made $1 million, right, in GCI.
yeah,
And for that for that extraordinary accomplishment, they actually put him on stage at R4 in front of like thousands of people, probably hundreds of thousands, with the broadcast. And everybody can copy that, but few do, right? I mean, is there anything that I would say there's nothing that he did that everybody on this call could not do. It's just a matter of will, right?
and yeah, and desire, to really commit to the process and do whatever it takes to build your business. And I loved one of his lines when he talk about going out on a listing conversation. And the people would say to him, sellers would say to him, well, why should I do business with you? Because you're brand new in the business when there are other agents in this area who have been doing this forever, who are well established. And his response to them was, because I'm here talking to you. They're not here talking to you. I'm committed to working for you. You're going to have to call them. I'm here on my own because I want to help you.
Yeah, and Robert, that's another great, for me, that's a mindset shift, right? Because I think we all have like a competitor in our local market or in our geography that, let's face it, maybe we don't like to go against them because they're pretty good, right? Or maybe they have a little bit more market share than us, or maybe they sell their homes for a half a point higher than we do, right? And we know that. So I think we, both admire and are slightly intimidated by certain competitors. But what I say is if you're having a listing conversation with a qualified prospect, we are the only option that's there right now. Okay. So that other agent, that other agency, that other influence is not in the room with you. Okay. You win, lose, or draw on your own accord there. Okay. I remember there was a time when, um, Robert, you probably remember this. One of our managers was plucking a lot of agents from a company, and we were doing a lot of KV Core, it was conversion then, and we had a lot of Realtor.com leads. And that the other agency was frustrated. And the manager started talking about in the meetings that the leads that we give our agents that left his agency weren't as good as everybody thought they were. Think about that for a second. So I actually got 2 phone calls from agents in his office who didn't even know who we were or that we were doing leads and training. Said, you know what? My manager was starting to talk about that the stuff you're giving isn't as good as that they may think. However, I don't get anything here. So, you know, we had 2 conversations that took us 0 effort because we were a demon in their head. Okay. And we as agents could be the same, we could be guilty the same way of, you know, letting somebody else get under our skin and sabotaging our own business. Okay, because we're the only one that's at that living room table, the dining room table, walking through the house at that time. And we need to be the obvious choice. As a matter of fact, you know, Robert, this wasn't planned, but I'm gonna put on our vision statement, not our mission statement. What do you think?
Yes. I actually have it printed here. I always look at it.
So our vision statement is quite simply um, to be the irresistible and irreplaceable obvious choice for top agents and teams to share their vision, passion, and excellence for growth. Now, by conveyance, as a practitioner for a buyer or seller, you either currently need to be the irresistible and irreplaceable obvious choice for home buyers and home buyers, sellers, and investors to work with, or you need to figure out how you become that obvious choice, right? Because if you're not the irresistible and irreplaceable obvious choice for a home buyer or home seller to work with, you don't need better scripts. You need to figure out what we need to do to be that choice. Okay. We want to be the top office in our markets. Okay. And have our entire brand be top 3 in all the markets that we're in. And we want to be the #1 REMAX organization in New Jersey and in Florida. So my friends down in Florida, we got a lot of work to do, but you know, there's a pathway that we've seen before. So
Okay. Sorry.
this can't be done without every one of you elevating your game and enriching your practices for the greater good of the entire organization. Go ahead, Maria.
So, touching with what you and Robert Garber were talking about, that newer agent with a point system. If anyone on this call would like to know more, there is that same point system in campus in our coaching system. And if anyone would like to know how it works, call me, talk to me. I'll meet with you, and you can use the same strategy. 2 of my agents have been using it, and since then they have been doing some nice business.
Now, you know, in a typical real estate office, you know, maybe you have 50 agents, right? You have 10 of them that are probably making 150,000 gross commission or more. You have 80 of them that are, you have 40 of them that are doing less than that. Now, is it the brand that they're with? I'm not even, you know, harping on Remax or any other brand. Is it the brand that makes the difference?
No.
No. Is it the Maria? Do you favor the top agents in your office? Is that why they're successful?
I don't favor them. Everyone is treated equally.
And I will say as a matter of fact, maybe even to a fault, Maria, you spend a lot of time on the people that aren't top producers yet, and you, to a fault, maybe, you know, invest beyond reasonable belief in them because of your faith in people. So the difference is not, and there's Keller Williams, there's EXP, there's Remax, there's Weichert. There are great agents in all organizations, right? And within the same office, there are great examples of, top agents, and there are examples of, you know, um, half-hearted efforts, and I'm going to call them statistical failures, not because they're a failure by definition, but they're a statistical failure in the business. Okay, so the difference is us. The difference is, what do we do with the opportunity that we're given? How do we hold ourselves accountable? How do we, how do we not repeat the first year 10 times in the business? Because Maria and Robert and Colleen, we've all seen people in the real estate business that have been in it for 30 years, and they repeated the first year 30 times, right? I know you, Maria. You're thinking of two people, but that's the power of consistency. That's the power of the compound effect of small improvement every day. Um, that's the power of a commitment, a confidence, and the commitment is committing to be that person that deserves to be chosen because you've invested in yourself, right? You didn't just learn a few key buzzwords to get somebody to sign on the dotted line and not be able to deliver the service. You've made the investment in making sure that you are the person that delivers, you know, um, irresistible and irreplaceable service, and you therefore become the obvious choice. Who would not want to be on a listing opportunity where you're the obvious choice, right? You're irresistible, irreplaceable, obvious choice. I mean, they're going to sign up all the time, but you have to become that person who can sit there and be that obvious choice. And if you're not the obvious choice, then the competition comes into play, right? I mean, I think I might have asked you, Maria, might have been Robert, like, hey, if you get a listing appointment and it was from somebody who you worked with in the past and they referred you to somebody, what's the chance that you sign that listing up? Robert, what was your answer?
I think it was probably 100%.
Me too.
Probably. It was definitely 100%. And
100%.
you said it with extreme confidence because you know that if a past customer who had a great experience refers you to somebody and says, "Hey, my good friend at work wants to sell his house in Mountain Lakes, and I gave him your name and I told him what a great job you did," you're basically just going there as a formality in most cases,
Right.
right?
Right.
And even if it's not a formality, in your mind, it's a formality, right?
Mhm.
Because you're the obvious choice and there is no competition when you go in there, and we all need to think in that plane because I've never seen a buyer or a seller invite three agents into their home at the same time and say, all right, folks, we're going to have a little conversation. At the end of the day, I'm going to pick somebody. Has anybody ever heard of something so ridiculous?
No.
I've never seen it. Been doing this many, many years. So our only competition is us when we get in the door. And, if we don't earn the businesses because we haven't first convinced ourselves that we're irresistible, irreplaceable, and the obvious choice for that person. Because if we haven't convinced ourselves, we're rarely going to convince somebody else, right? And
Rob,
this all comes down to math. Go ahead, Colleen.
you asked about the figure on the successful agents, the 20%. 30% of their business comes from repeat clients and referrals.
Should be Colleen should be higher.
Absolutely.
So the top agents,
It should be 75 to
they,
100.
they should get a minimum of 50% of their business should be from past clients that just come and find them because they did such a great job.
Well, one of the things that first was touting is that it increased those successful agents business by 39%, contacting those repeat and referral clients.
I don't I don't even need any evidence for that statement because I'm sure it happens. I'm sure that if you had a program that just downloaded all your past sales from the MLS and you said, hey, silly agent, call your people twice a year, you'd probably increase it by 20%, right? So I appreciate that, sharing. And I look at that, Colleen, as both evidence of it working, and I also look at it as an opportunity to exploit. And when I say
Mhm.
exploit, I don't mean in a negative way, because I think if you're doing a great job, you know, you have a moral obligation to work with as many people as you can because you're doing a great job. People trust you to buy and sell their most valuable asset. They're going to raise their families there.
But when you don't stay in touch with these past clients, they're offended because up until the closing, you've been almost like their best friend, their guider, their mentor, their support system. And after it closes, boom, you're gone. It makes them feel like you really didn't care for them or
And,
care about their needs.
and Colleen, I'll bet you a lot of people on this um, Zoom meeting know somebody who's treated their clients like that. They've been a therapist. They've been, Johnny on the spot. They've done whatever it takes to get the job done. Right? We all know somebody like that, and for many of us, they're wearing our clothes. All right, think about that. They're wearing your clothes because they are you. Okay, we're guilty of that, and I don't say that in a negative or a mean spirited way. I say that in a abundance threshold of this is an untapped opportunity for most of us, right? And if you're newer in the business and you don't have a ton of past customers, don't leave this call saying that, oh, it doesn't apply to me, because you have friends and family and people that trust you that you have to have a conversation with. Okay, and there's a difference between having a conversation where you're offering to be a value versus you're pitching for a commission check. And I will tell you, new, experienced people can sense whether you're out for their interest to help them out, or if you're just out to make a commission check to pay your rent or to pay the mortgage. People can sense that, folks.
And let me and
And
let me share one thing along these lines, Rob. In that, just the other day, one of my past clients from like 6 years ago popped into my head, and I realized I hadn't spoken to them in quite some time. So I reached out to them and I did my mea culpa. I said, hey, I know that I haven't spoken to you in a while, and that's on me, but I am curious and interested to see how you guys are doing and how what's going on in your lives, are you still loving the house, whatever. And we had a great conversation, and they thanked me so much for reaching out again after all this time. So don't be afraid if you haven't spoken to, your clients in quite some time. That doesn't mean, I'm too scared to call them at this point because, they won't like me or whatever. Just call them, tell them you're sorry you haven't been in touch, and then just go on with the conversation.
so Robert, I love everything you said except for I wouldn't apologize. I mean, I would say, hey, I just, I know I haven't kept in touch, but I just don't like the word sorry because it just ingrains in their head. And I was there, Robert, but I just think, hey, if you can find a different way, one way I've coached some teams and team members and agents is to say, hey, Robert, I was actually just showing a property in the neighborhood and I was just thinking about you and I drove past your house. How are you doing? Right? Because it shows that you're still relevant, right? You were in their neighborhood and you don't need to apologize for that, right? And then you can start communicating with them better. And I'm not being critical because I did it, Robert, but I think just taking the sorry out of it changes the narrative just a millimeter that makes it a little bit easier.
Okay.
So, but the first call is the hardest. After that, it's easy to make the follow-up call, right?
Right.
Go ahead.
One question. How do you not get discouraged when you show like multiple houses for a good amount of time to a couple and then they go see one house with an agent that they like and they put an offer and then buy it?
All right.
And
You're not going to like this, but we need to look inside at why we weren't the irresistible, irreplaceable, obvious choice. Okay. And I literally just had this conversation with somebody. I'm going to quote what they said here. I think it was a text. Okay. This person hadn't had an offer accepted in 5 weeks. Okay. Had two conversations, and this is the text here. I'm not going to give you the name, but it says, second offer accepted in less than a week. TY, 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 TY for helping me get out of that stagnant energy I was holding onto, and a bunch of happy faces.
Yeah, that's what I felt like after like, and it's we're talking about like actual like family friends, you know, that like I was
So
like,
Luanda, let's separate from the past, right? And I want everybody on this call to visualize there is um, a rail, a steel rail that gets pulled behind a truck, and it creates a little bit of it creates a groove, right? And if you just follow that groove, you're going to get to that next destination, right?
mhm.
And that's the visualization of a groove. But you just change the meaning of the word, and you call it a rut, right? You get in that rut, and the rut is taking you to a negative place. You keep going to that negative place. And I asked, can anybody tell me a physical description that identifies a groove from a rut? Like if you're to see a rut in the ground versus a groove, is there any distinguishing difference? Nobody. So,
In my head, the rut would be bumpier, but that's just in my head.
right, but you could see a groove. You could see somebody saying, "All right, you got to keep your wheel in the groove, or you got to stay in the rut." There's really no physical distinction. It's just the way that we perceive it. And that agent, I had 100% confidence that it was in their head that these things weren't coming together, and we went back to the basics. And Luanda, for most of us, like baseball players, they get into what do you call it? Like a baseball player when they get into a bad streak, what do they call that?
Being in a rut.
All right,
A
they're in
rut.
a rut. Yeah, so they're in a rut.
Slump.
A slump. Yeah, they're in a slump,
Well,
right?
hitting slump. Yeah, hitting slump.
They're in a hitting slump, right? But then there's a time when like they hit, 9 out of 10 or multiple base hits, right? And is that is that professional athlete in July that much better than they are in September when they're in the rut, or if they're one of the athletes that thrive on peak opportunities in July, they might be on a rut, and then in October when it really counts, that's when their bat is on fire, right? The person's the same person. It's all in their head. And I tell you, Lawanda, like don't let a bad experience, um, become something that's ingrained in your memory bank. Okay, just say, look, that's something I'm going to learn from, but we're going to get back into the groove and we're going to stay out of the rut.
Yeah.
Okay. And it happens over and over again. And I'm not that good and I'm not that smart. It's you guys. All I do is just point out like the obvious piece, which is, you're in a rut. You need to change it and think about it as a groove, and your outcome will change because you're still that same person. You're knowledgeable, you're passionate, you want to help people. If they don't see it, okay, we need to figure out how do we get into the groove where everything starts to happen. And we've all been there where everything's going great and you can't, oh my god, I just found $20 in my pocket, oh my god, I got a check in the mail from the IRS, right? Or you can go home and damn, another bill, and this deal fell apart, and somebody hit the back of my car, like it piles up. And think differently. You know Call me individually. I will help you like I did the other agent, and we'll have a great message from you about from no deals in 5 weeks to 2 deals in a week.
That sounds like a pretty good plan.
All right, I'm out there. You have my number.
Okay.
Everybody, I want to thank you for your time and being brave to come on for a math class.
Thank you. Have a good day, everyone.
All right,
Bye,
bye.
guys.